whatever it may be, like he's just not in a point where he can win football games at the end of the season and in the playoffs. All right, here we go. In 3, 2, 1, bang. What's up, everyone, and welcome back to the OT and OT podcast, the show where we go overtime on all things sports and off topic on everything else. Welcome back to the second episode of the OT and OT podcast. Thank you for tuning back in. I hope you guys enjoyed episode number 1. I'm so excited, like I said in episode 1, to be doing this for you guys, to be sharing my thoughts about different sports and different experiences. And this is honestly something that I'm going to love and enjoy putting out for you guys and for myself, because sports is something I'm so passionate about. But without further ado, let's just hop right into it. Today we're going to be discussing quarterbacks and their importance for a team, and us as fans throwing out words like elite like it's a free given title. So without further ado, let's hop into it. This first little part that I wanted to discuss was quarterbacks that are paid versus quarterbacks who might be more so trusted. And I wrote a list of the top 10 paid quarterbacks in terms of the amount that they make per year. And this list, for those of you that are football fans, may not surprise you as much, but it surprised me. Like I said in episode 1, I don't get into like the details of the NFL and stuff like that. Like I don't want to be caught in any drama, like with players and coaches and stuff like that. I try not to stay out of that. I'm truly just a sports fan. I'm not a details fan in terms of the sports that I like to watch. So this is the top 10 list of quarterbacks in terms of how much they get paid per year. And like I said, you might have known this, but I was not aware exactly of numbers. At number 1, Dak Prescott gets paid $60 million a year. And then we have 4 quarterbacks at $55 million a year: Josh Allen, Joe Burrow, Trevor Lawrence, and Jordan Love. They all get paid $55 million a year. Below Jordan at number 6, we have Tua Tagovailoa at $53.1 million. Right below Tua is Jared Goff at $53 million. We also have Brock Purdy tied at $53 million per year. Below Brock Purdy, we have Justin Herbert at $52.5 million, and Lamar Jackson at number 10 at $52 million. And those are just their numbers per year. Obviously, their contracts are different lengths of time, and that means that their numbers are going to be, vary in terms of where they're at per year and then overall contract, which is something that we're going to talk about here in a little bit as well. But like I said, we're talking about who's paid versus who's trusted. So those are the quarterbacks that are paid the most per year. But out of those quarterbacks, who is trusted in terms of, are they going to get you to the point where you want them to get you to in the season? And this could get very controversial, because although there are some quarterbacks on the top 10 list of overall contracts that aren't on the top 10 per year, those aren't the quarterbacks that I'm going to be talking about. I'm going to be talking strictly just about the top 10 per year and if they're to be trusted. Now, going off of this list, I look at number 1 spot. Obviously, Dak has I believe it is a historic contract in terms of the amount that he gets paid per year, the highest paid NFL player. I believe that stands true. He is the highest paid player in the NFL in terms of per year status. And is he a trusted quarterback? Is he going to get you to the point where you want them to be by the end of the season? And if recent history is any truth, then no, he's not. They have made it to the playoffs since he has been there. I I don't know exactly how many games Dak Prescott has won in the playoffs, but I know I'm pretty sure it's less than 3. But also, like within the last 5 years, it's not necessarily because that he's not great, but the Philadelphia Eagles have been, well, even and the Commanders in the last 5 years have been better than the Dallas Cowboys. And it just seems like Dak Prescott has kind of that overlying hump that he has to get over, like Lamar Jackson and Josh Allen have. Josh Allen has had more playoff success than Dak Prescott, but Josh Allen still can't get to the point where he wants to be, which is the Super Bowl. And Dak Prescott has a hard time winning playoff games. Uh, I'm gonna. There's a heater making noise in here, so I'm gonna turn that off real quick. But back to it. So Dak is obviously the highest paid. So I'm gonna talk about him first. And in terms of paid versus trusted, I think I'd have to put him on the paid column. I just don't. He puts up good regular season numbers, but he just isn't performing at the end of the season like he should. And I know he's had a couple injuries in the last couple years where he's missed games, and that could lead to him not playing well at the end of the season or whatever it may be. Like he's just not in a point where he can win football games at the end of the season and in the playoffs. Not that he's a bad quarterback. He's a great quarterback, but he's just not in a place where he's winning playoff games. I don't know any other way to put it. He's paid. He's not really in a trusted position in my opinion. And then we move on to the 4 quarterbacks tied at $55 million a year: Josh Allen, Joe Burrow, Trevor Lawrence, and Jordan Love. Out of those quarterbacks, and this kind of contradicts my point of not making it to the Super Bowl or doing well late in the season, but Josh Allen, I think for the Bills organization, they feel he can be trusted, but it's still, is he trusted enough to get you to the Super Bowl, to win a Super Bowl? The Bills, have not ever won one, and Josh Allen is the guy that they're putting all their ducks in a row for. But can you trust him to get you to that point? And obviously as fans, we just don't know at this point because we've seen him make deep playoff runs. But does that contribute to his trustworthiness? I don't know. Because I would like to believe that he is trusted enough. But like I said, it kind of contradicts my point because I feel like he's definitely more trusted than Dak Prescott, but he's still not getting you to a Super Bowl. So it's a hard one, really, for Josh Allen, I think. I think you'd have to put him more on the trusted side. And then going down to Joe Burrow. Joe Burrow definitely is paid more so than he is trusted. And I referenced this in the last episode, but he's been injured a couple times in the last couple seasons. He gets paid a lot of money to play quarterback, and he just has not had. Can you attribute only part of the team succeeding and correlate that back to the quarterback who is actually really good, but they still can't get over the hump of getting, 10 to 12 wins a season? I don't know exactly how many the Bengals won this year. I think they won 6 games. 6 to 8 games, somewhere in that range, I think. So at this point, Joe Burrow is definitely more paid than he is trusted. Trevor Lawrence has, I think, especially this season, made a big statement for himself. He performed really well late in the season. They made a late season push. They made the playoffs, and I honestly think they were in good position to win a couple playoff games this year. They just unfortunately got matched up against the Bills. And arguably top 3 playoff game this season. They did end up losing, unfortunately, because I think I think if they would have won that game, I think they would have had a better chance of going to the Super Bowl than the Patriots, because I think they were probably the most dangerous team in the playoffs at that point. So I think if you're putting a lot of weight in your vote or in your reason in this season for this trusted or paid list, I think you'd have to put Trevor Lawrence in the trusted section. He basically had a midseason revival and performed fantastically well the second half of this year. And then we go to Jordan Love. I mean, they've made the playoffs last couple of years. Haven't done anything in the playoffs the last couple of years. So I think kind of the same thing as Dak Prescott. He's more so in the paid column than he is the trusted column for me personally. Now, just a reminder, this is all my personal opinion. You may disagree. That's totally fine. You can clown me in the comments, whatever it is, but this is my opinion. If you want to message me, we can talk about it. That's totally fine. That's what I'm expecting from you guys as fans. Comment down below. What do you disagree with me about? And if you do, let's freaking talk about it. I'm down to talk. I love sports conversations, and this is exactly why I'm doing this show. There's no reason to be doing this if I'm not expecting somebody to comment their thoughts and opinions on it, so I can talk back to you. I will never be degrading to you in your opinions, because that's the beauty about opinions. Everybody has their own, and it's fun to talk about them. I'm just expressing mine on a public platform. Jordan Love, and then we go to Tua Tagovailoa. Now, there's a reason that the Dolphins organization is moving on, or wanting to move on, or have had rumors of moving on from Tua, because he is not a trusted quarterback. Now, unfortunately for him, he has had some injury-ridden seasons with the concussions, but still, like, every quarterback at some point goes through some injuries. Concussions are a little bit different, I mean, obviously, than, a sprained hand or whatever it is. Like, that's unfortunate for him, but I'm not gonna sit back and tell you that he's a trusted quarterback. I mean, I think his best year was his senior year at Alabama. Sorry. Yeah, he's definitely in the paid column for sure. And then we move down to Jared Goff. I think it depends on who you ask. If you're asking me, I think he's trusted because he puts up good regular season numbers. Obviously, they haven't made a deep playoff run. They went in as the number 1 seed and lost in the second round after a first round bye last year. And they failed to make the playoffs after being number 1 for 4 to 5 weeks this season. So that does not play in their favor at all. And it sucks for them because they have a really good squad, and Jared Goff is just the guy that caps that off. And I mean, he's a really good quarterback. I really give it to him, and I like Jared Goff. I think he's a good player, and they have a great squad, but it's just unfortunate for them that they had some issues internally, I think, that led to their downfall this season. But I would still put him in the trusted section. All right, below Jared Goff, Brock Purdy. I think this is probably the most controversial take in the NFL as well. Is Brock Purdy a good quarterback? I think he relies definitely more on everyone else than everyone else relies on him. And that's bad to say about a quarterback, but I think that's probably the truest statement that I can say about him, because it's the way the offense is ran is why I think he would be put in the trusted section, because he's not put in positions to make that many mistakes. He does, and also he had some injury, struggled a little bit. So if there was a quarterback that I was going to put right in the middle of trusted and paid, it would definitely be Brock Purdy. But I think the fact that I, kind of started watching him from the beginning of his career that you should put him in the trusted section because he has led them to the playoffs the last couple of years. I mean, heck, they went to the Super Bowl and just about won it. And they made it to the NFC Championship the year prior to that. So, I mean, and they made it to the NFC Champion or the second. They made it into the second round this year, beat the Philadelphia Eagles. So, I think you put Brock Purdy in the trusted section. I think he's doing really well for himself. I think he's leading a good team to good places, and they've had decent playoff runs the last couple of years. So he's definitely in the trusted section in my book. I think I just convinced myself to put him there. Justin Herbert, paid. You cannot trust him. You get put into a situation where you play the Patriots in the playoffs this year, and you basically lay 2 eggs. So I don't even know how you could put him in the trusted section. He's had decent regular season success, but every professional analyst, sorry, there we go. Any professional analyst is going to tell you he's a paid quarterback. He's a phenomenal athlete. Everybody will give him that, but he's just not a paid or a trusted quarterback at this point. He just hasn't done anything based off of what people thought he was going to do, unfortunately enough. And Lamar Jackson. Now, this one is tough because he falls in the same kind of realm as Dak Prescott. He has not done anything in the playoffs other than, maybe last year where the hopes were very, very high. But I feel the injury to him this year is going to lead him down a bad rabbit hole of not doing well the next couple of seasons, sadly enough. And I actually was watching a video earlier about way too early Super Bowl predictions, and I'm going to try to remind myself to make that a segment for later today, because I have some thoughts, and I want to share my way too early Super Bowl prediction as well. So that is the list of top 10 contracts per year in the quarterback realm. So, and going through the trusted quarterbacks, I think you have Josh Allen, Trevor Lawrence, Jared Goff, Brock Purdy, and Lamar Jackson is a very iffy one to list for sure. I think if I were to list him, I would put him more on the paid section than the trusted section for sure. But then you get a little bit of both. There are quarterbacks that I wrote down that I think would be both. And I also, like I said, I put down the top 10 contracts overall, and it does vary a little bit than the per year contracts. So these are, I'm going to list off the 10 biggest contracts in terms of who gets paid. Patrick Mahomes at number 1. He signed a 10-year, $450 million contract. So he only gets paid $45 million a year, but he's on a 10-year contract. I believe when I was researching this, it's the highest contract ever, like the longest and highest contract ever signed in NFL history. And then you have Josh Allen, Joe Burrow, Trevor Lawrence, Brock Purdy, Justin Herbert, Lamar Jackson, Jalen Hurts at number 8, Dak Prescott at number 9, and then Kyler Murray at number 10. And the reason Prescott is at 9 is because he signed a 4-year, $240 million contract. So that's why he's number 1, is because his contract is shorter for a higher amount. That's why he gets paid $60 a year. Jalen Hurts, I was surprised to see, was on the top 10 list of overall contracts. A 5-year, $255 million. So I was happy to see that, obviously. But yeah, so the list of overall contracts and per year contracts doesn't doesn't vary that much. There's only a couple quarterbacks that are on the list that aren't on the per year. So a couple quarterbacks that I put on the trusted and paid section, Patrick Mahomes, Josh Allen, and Jared Goff. Those three, I think, are the epitome of getting paid a lot and being trusted a lot. And I do think my statements back that up. Yes, Josh Allen has not made it to the Super Bowl, but he's still year in and year out making decent playoff runs, leading his team to what some people would say he has not the most reliable crew. So it kind of varies by who you talk to. I mean, anybody could say a great quarterback is going to take anyone anywhere. I've heard people say that about Tom Brady, which is true. Like he had some teams that were less talented than others, and he led them to the promised land, which is winning a Super Bowl. I hear people say that about LeBron James all the time, about his finals runs and taking a team that did not belong in the finals to the finals. So any leader of a team, which is usually put on the quarterback, is or has the ability to do those things. Is Josh Allen that guy? Yes, I believe he is. But like I said, it depends on who you talk to. And then obviously Patrick Mahomes. I am not a Chiefs fan. I think the Chiefs are overhyped because of their success, and I really dislike bandwagon fans, and that's what the majority of people have become. Bandwagon fans because the Chiefs started having a lot of success, and I don't dislike that because of just the Chiefs. I dislike that for all teams. If you like a team just because they're finally gaining success, that's BS. I hate that. But I'm not going to deny as a sports fan that Patrick Mahomes is a very trusted player, and rightfully so. He signs the largest contract in NFL history. Good for him. I'm very happy for him because he has led that organization to a lot of success in the last 10 years. I mean, you can't deny his greatness. Now, well, we're going to save the comparison of quarterbacks for a later episode. So you better come back because we do have a GOAT debate coming up, and I am so excited to get into that with you. But yeah, then Jared Goff, he gets paid, $53 million a year, and let's see, he actually is not on the top 10 list of overall contracts. Yeah. But in terms of his per year salary, he's a very trusted quarterback. Okay, and that is going to bring me into, and I kind of talked about this with Brock Purdy a little bit, of people or quarterbacks specifically that could be labeled as a system quarterback. Now, I've always heard the term, but like I said, I tried to stay out of the details of the NFL, details of the sports that I follow. And I've always heard this, but I didn't necessarily know what those things meant. So system quarterback is basically just any quarterback that follows the system of their coach the way that they should, doesn't make any big plays, doesn't do anything out of the ordinary, doesn't do anything off cuff, basically. And when I was researching it, I looked up, quarterbacks that have been labeled as system quarterbacks. These are the names it gave me: Brock Purdy, Tua Tagovailoa, Jared Goff, and Kirk Cousins. And after doing that research, I realized it all makes sense. It makes sense why you'd be labeled those things. Brock Purdy, like I said, he's done some great things. He's led his team to some good playoff runs, but I think he benefits from the system. And I think that's because he has phenomenal players. He's not expected or really needs to do anything out of the ordinary. He doesn't have to make the the quick decisions in terms of what he should do all the time, and relies pretty heavily on his co-stars of the team. I mean, they have Christian McCaffrey, the probably top two running back in the league, in my opinion, and he runs the ball quite often. Brock Purdy never really has to scramble, and if he does, we know it's going to be for minimal gain. So Brock Purdy being labeled system quarterback makes a whole lot of sense. Same with Tua Tagovailoa. Same instance. I mean, he had Jalen Waddle, Devon Achane, Mostert. Who did I say? I can't remember if I said Tyreek Hill or Jalen Waddle, but he has a very good supporting group. He has a great supporting cast. He's not expected or needs to make anything happen outside of throwing the ball and handing the ball off. Jared Goff. Dude looks like Tom Brady out there. He's slow as bananas. So he's not going to run the ball. We know that. Now there's the creativity of Dan Campbell. So that maybe is why Jared Goff looks a lot better than he actually is. I'm not trying to downplay his ability, because Jared Goff is a very good quarterback, but he's not. He doesn't need to make those plays like Lamar Jackson does or like Patrick Mahomes does. He doesn't need to do that, because he fits super well into the ideas and the play calling of the offensive coordinator. And same with Kirk Cousins. Kirk Cousins and Jared Goff are very similar to each other. Kirk Cousins has a great arm. He's, made a couple mistakes here and there, but he's still a very good quarterback. The last couple seasons, he's actually played really, really well. Even his time with the Falcons this year, he played pretty well when he was playing. But those quarterbacks, those four specifically, were ones that I saw were labeled as system quarterbacks more than others. And then it brought in two other names that I was actually very surprised to see. The first name that it gave me was Dak Prescott. And I didn't believe it at first. But then when I started looking or thinking back at Dallas Cowboy games and the way that Dak plays, that's why he's in question, because he does make those plays like Patrick Mahomes does, like Lamar Jackson does, like Josh Allen does. In certain times, he does make those big plays that a system quarterback would not make. There's no necessarily designed runs for him. There's nothing that really leads anyone to believe that he's a dynamic runner or somebody that can play off the top of his brain. But there are times that Dak Prescott really surprises me, and I believe he surprises the world in the NFL. So Dak Prescott being a system quarterback, I'm going to lean more to the no side than the yes, because I think he does make more of those plays than you would expect. And the next name that I really was not expecting was Jalen Hurts. They listed Jalen Hurts as a possible system quarterback. And I think under the right coaching staff, I wouldn't believe him to be a system quarterback at all. If you think of the 2024-2025 season under Kellen Moore, absolutely not would I label him as a system quarterback, because Kellen Moore trusted their offense. He trusted Jalen Hurts' ability. Yes, they had Saquon Barkley, which was where a lot of the plays revolved around, but when Jalen Hurts needed to, Jalen Hurts would make the plays off of something broken. He's a very good runner. He can run the ball super well, and he can throw the ball in tight areas if he needs to. If something is broken, he can scramble. He can get out of the pocket. He can move. He's mobile. So I think him and Dak are actually very similar in terms of when they make plays, because it seems like they both are making the plays that matter the most when they matter the most. So yeah, I don't think Dak or Jalen belong in the system quarterback conversation, but I think just based off of how they play the majority of the time is why they'd be labeled that. I mean, the Eagles have a top 5 offensive line in the league. So he doesn't need to make those plays because he has a great line. Now, Dak Prescott, on the other hand, also, they have a good line, but that also leads into him maybe having to scramble more, make plays more. I actually don't, I don't know. I'm kind of rethinking that statement now because I think of Patrick Mahomes, and he also has had great offensive lines in the past, but he still had to make those plays. I mean, I'm not directly correlating, your offensive line's ability with your playmaking, but I think that kind of leads to where quarterbacks have to make those plays. So it would make sense, I guess. But still, I'm not putting Dak Prescott or Jalen Hurts in the system quarterback position. And kind of moving off of that topic just a little bit, why is it that quarterbacks are always to blame for the things that happen to the team? I don't think it's necessarily right, but I think that there are some areas in which the quarterback should be blamed for. But I also think that, especially in today's world, quarterbacks get blamed for way too much. I think it's getting a little bit out of hand in terms of what the quarterback is getting in trouble for and blamed for. And I think as fans, we have to stop doing this to them. When it comes to quarterbacks getting blamed, I think it has to be directly correlated to their gameplay. And I've kind of said this before. I think I haven't said this on the show, obviously, but when it comes to quarterbacks throwing the ball and they get total reception yards or total yards on a play added to their passing yards, I think yes, it makes sense. You threw the ball to that point, but then, and I know it'd be so much work to change from the point of catching the ball to the end run. That's what receivers should get as receiving yards. And from point of throw to reception, that's what quarterbacks should get as throwing yards. That would be a lot of work, and I understand that, but also, doesn't that make sense? If you throw a 5-yard slant on the 14-yard line, why would you get rewarded for throwing an 86-yard touchdown? Because you only did 5 yards of work. You know what I mean? So I think it's hard sometimes to give quarterbacks that credit when really, if your receiver makes a great play, if he breaks 3 tackles and like I said, runs that far for a touchdown, why is the quarterback getting that much praise? He threw a 5-yard slant and the receiver just happened to make a play. How is that fair? Not that anything has to be fair, but why does that make sense to give him credit for that when he threw a 5-yard slant and they scored an 86-yard touchdown? I don't understand that, but also, let's say the quarterback is supposed to throw that 5-yard slant, the receiver's a little bit late, the timing is supposed to be on. That's what their jobs are. They have to be on all the time. Receivers, quarterbacks, running backs, the line, everybody has to be on all the time during games. We know that you're not going to be all the time because that's just human error. That's how we are. That's how we physically are as people. But if the quarterback throws a 5-yard slant and the receiver is off a little bit, or he's slow, he's not in the place where he's supposed to be, Yes, you're supposed to make sure that your guys are open when you throw the ball, but if that's the only play call or that's the only person running a route and it's a quick slant for a quick couple yards and you throw a pick because your receiver's not where he's supposed to be on time, how is that your fault as a quarterback? You could throw it a little bit behind and then risk your receiver not catching it at all but getting hands on it, or you throw it to where you're supposed to throw it, like you've been taught to throw it, like you were told to throw it, and your receiver's slow, so you throw a pick. That's not your fault. That's the area in which I don't think quarterbacks should be blamed the way they are. And it really bothers me because I hear this all the time, that people will say the quarterback made a great throw, but the receiver just wasn't there, or they were not on the same page of communication. And I think more so than not, it does get blamed on the quarterback because the communication comes from them. You're right, it does. And you're in a position on the field where you should be able to see everybody all the time. And as a receiver, like I grew up playing more running back, but I was in instances where I was a receiver or a receiving back, basically. And when I was on my route or I was doing my route or whatever, like I was able to see, who's here, who's to my left or who's to my right. Is anybody behind me? How much do I have to go before I close the distance on the safety or the corner or the outside linebacker? Like I was able to see that as a receiver. So, if your receiver makes a different decision, like, isn't that your job as the quarterback to see me and to see where I'm going to go? If you're throwing the ball to me when I'm not looking, how is that my fault? Especially if it's an option route. Like, I have the option to run the route that I choose based off of where the coverage is sitting, and I choose to run something that you didn't think I was going to run. If you threw the ball before I was even looking or made my break, how is that my fault? You're just expecting me to run that. And I know that, and like I said, the quarterback is in a position where he sees the entire field at once. But just because you can see that doesn't mean that I'm seeing that and make that right decision. If I make the wrong decision based off of what you see as a quarterback, don't throw me the ball. Throw it away. And yeah, I think that is the right. Yeah, I think that gets more blamed on the receiver because the quarterback has the communication and he has basically the right to say, this is the play, this is what's going on. But if it's an option route or a choice route, the receiver has every right to make the choice. And if the quarterback doesn't throw them the ball when they get to that choice, how is that the receiver's fault? But I feel like they get blamed the most. Now, the double edge to that basically is when the quarterback makes a good throw on those routes, the quarterback gets all the praise. I think I'm not gonna say, I don't necessarily want to say, but I think it's what I'm thinking, that the quarterback position is very much overemphasized in terms of their importance. Yes, they are an important position on the field, but isn't every position? Like the quarterback always has to be on the field for the offensive plays. I get that. They're the director of players on the field. The coach can only do so much. Nobody's going to yell at the quarterback for not being in on offense because they're always in. If a wide receiver didn't sub in when they were supposed to and there's only 10 guys on the field, the wide receiver's getting yelled at. So the quarterback position is very important. Yes, I get that and I agree with that. But I think that as time has gone on, we're putting so much importance on that spot. And also, like, that leads to us putting up new stats that mean absolutely nothing. Like, the stats that should matter are your throwing yards, your touchdowns, your throwing percentage, and your wins. Why are we adding in, first quarterback to throw left-handed with one eye closed to the right side of his body? Like, that's how ridiculous the stats have become. And every quarterback gets something like that throughout the season. First, whatever it may be. Like I said, it's those ridiculous stats. And it's like we have to keep adding things that we can put on the quarterback's resume to make them look better. Guys, we don't need to make them look better. They're at the most elite level of quarterback play. That's enough. They made it to the NFL. And then when you add Super Bowl win, Super Bowl winning quarterback, Super Bowl MVP quarterback, that's when we can put more importance on their name. But all 32 starting quarterbacks throughout the season, they are important. They have made it to the very top spot in their position in the world. There's no other league that is as elite as the NFL in terms of the world of football. So give them the credit that's due, but don't make it so they have to keep rising to the occasion. Every time you add a new stat, you're making it so quarterbacks are reaching that point. They're already here. They're already at the top. Don't make it. There's no other room up here. There's nowhere else to go. There are accomplishments within being at the top. Like I said, all 32 quarterbacks are the very best. When you give them the chance to go to the Super Bowl, that's adding an achievement to that spot. That's not rising them above. Because I also think back to Joe Burrow. Joe Burrow went to a Super Bowl. He didn't win. He's a great quarterback, but that doesn't make him a worse quarterback than Justin Fields. That doesn't make him a worse quarterback than Patrick Mahomes, in my opinion. Worst as in not achievements. I think ability is something you have to go off of more than achievement. Because if you go off achievement, that's changing your opinion, and that's changing the outcome, and that's changing your answer. Quarterbacks are to be given as much praise as they should, because they're at the elite level. They're at the top. They shouldn't be given more praise based off of their performance, because it's not just them on the field. They have 10 other guys on their side of the ball. They have 21 other dudes on the field playing every single game. The quarterback is not the person that is always the one. Because I think of Jerry Rice. I think of Saquon Barkley. I think of, Christian McCaffrey. A lot of the teams that make it to the Super Bowl have arguably as good of players as their quarterback, or even better than. If people were going to rank, I'm going to go with the Philadelphia Eagles because they're my guys. If people were going to rank offensive players in terms of who they think is the best for the Philadelphia Eagles for the 2025 Super Bowl team, the majority of people are going to put Saquon Barkley above Jalen Hurts. And that's my whole point, is give the quarterbacks their praise. They have to do all the directing. They have to see everything. Everybody else is in charge of their one position. Yes, you have to see other things because it changes what your job is in that play or in your position. But the quarterback has to oversee everything. But that's my point of, just because they're the quarterback does not mean that they automatically should get the number one spot on every single team, which is crazy because I think that's what people do more often than not. But like I said, if you rank the Philadelphia Eagles offense last year, people are going to put Saquon Barkley at number one in terms of offensive side of the ball. People would probably put Lane Johnson above Jalen Hurts in terms of who they think is more vital to the team, because they think that you can insert anybody into the quarterback position in any situation except for a couple teams. And that's my whole point, is quarterbacks are great. Give them what they need. But quarterbacks are not the most vital spot on the field. Everybody has to play their role. Everybody has to do their position the way they're asked to do it, or else the whole team is not going to perform well. And what I have just said in the last 5 minutes may not make any sense. Sometimes I confuse myself. But basically what I'm saying is the quarterback is not as important as a lot of people put on the quarterback, because there's 10 other guys on the offensive side of the ball. I cannot stress that enough. And I think of last year's Super Bowl. Jalen Hurts won Super Bowl MVP. But Jalen Hurts was not the only one on the field. Devontae Smith had a touchdown. A.J. Brown had a touchdown. Cooper DeJean had a touchdown. So Jalen Hurts won Super Bowl MVP based off of his stats. But like I said, if you take away the amount of time that the receiver runs the ball after a reception, that's going to change what a quarterback's passing yards look like. You can be on the 1 yard line and score a 99-yard touchdown, but from the time that the ball leaves the quarterback's hands to the time the receiver catches the ball, if that's only 40 yards, that's the only credit that the quarterback should get. They threw a 40-yard pass. They did not throw a 99-yard pass. They threw a 40-yard pass, which led to a 59-yard run after catch. So my stance on quarterbacks is probably one in very few. That's fine. I'm here to challenge the thoughts of the way that people think about sports. My opinions are going to be based off of what I see. My opinions aren't going to be swayed by anybody else's opinions. It's just based off of how I see the game and how I see things play out. The quarterback position is very important. I'm going to say that. But the quarterback position also gets overpraised and overpenalized. Penalized in terms of people not giving them the credit they deserve. And I've said this I say this all the time in my daily life when an NFL conversation comes up. These are the most elite athletes in the world. There are teams that struggle. There are teams that don't. The teams that struggle should not be put down because of who they are and who they play for, because they are the elite athletes in the world. They are at the best point in which you can make it in your sport. So that part really, really bothers me, because we do talk about quarterbacks that are bad. We do talk about quarterbacks that are great. I don't think that's right. I think you can talk about quarterbacks that are great when it comes to their achievement. If a team loses 14 games a season, but your quarterback is throwing for 4,800 yards, how is that bad? I really don't understand that. Like, I mean, I think even Jalen Hurts, he doesn't throw for over 4,000 yards a season every year. I actually don't know the amount of years he has, but he's led his team to the playoffs every year. So, does that mean he's a bad quarterback if he doesn't pass for over 4,000 yards? That's what I'm like. There's so many different ways you can connect and correlate these stats to each other based off of quarterback play and team play. But that's what I'm saying. That's my whole point is we shouldn't put all this emphasis on one position. This is a team sport. This is a group of men on the field at the same time. Everybody's role is just as important as the next. If it wasn't, we wouldn't have those positions. Like, really, where else do you go from there? That's like the only way I can put it into words, and hopefully it makes sense to you. Sorry, this has been a long tangent, and I digress. I have a lot of opinions about the way we view sports because I try to be more analytical about things. I try to think about the meaning behind things, and that is one thing specifically position-wise that I struggle with knowing or talking about is the importance of a position on a field because they're all important. So that's where I want to leave it. I hope that my tangent did not rush you away from this show. I hope you're still watching. I appreciate those of you that are. Like I said, we're trying to get to 1,000 subscribers. That is our very first goal of the OT and OT podcast. Let's get to 1,000. We have a couple. We got a couple based off of that first video. And thank you for those of you that did subscribe. Also, if you subscribed, click that bell so you can get notifications every time an episode drops. Like I said, we're dropping every Wednesday. Crossing our fingers. But I told you I was going to come back to this at the end of the episode. Way too early. Super Bowl predictions. I thought about this. Like I said, I saw it this morning when I was doing some research, looking at things. And I think I have my final decision made. I think in the 2027 Super Bowl 61, I think we are going to see the Denver Broncos, which really could have been them if Bo Nix was not injured this season. I think it could have been them. So I think they're going to get back to that position. I think they're going to make a deep playoff run, and I think they will make it back to the Super Bowl next year. I think they're going to be better than they were this year, which is saying quite a bit. So I do believe it is going to be the Denver Broncos for the AFC. Now for the NFC, this is where things get a little bit iffy. Because I think about 2 years ago. I think about this year. Kellen Moore was a great mind. I think that we have another great mind. I think we have another great minded offensive coordinator this year. And I think Sean Mannion has a lot of fun things in store, and the Philadelphia Eagles, they have probably one of the most elite offensive squads in the league. So I think it is going to be a Denver Broncos, Philadelphia Eagles matchup in Super Bowl 61. Now, I'm gonna write this down, and then in less than a year from now, about a year from now, we are going to revisit this, and we're going to see how far off or how close I was. That is my prediction for Super Bowl 61, Denver Broncos, Philadelphia Eagles, and my Eagles coming out on top. Go Birds. Thank you, everyone, for tuning in to this episode of the OT and OT podcast. I appreciate it so much. And like I said, if you haven't already and you're watching this, please hit that subscribe button. We're coming to you every Wednesday. New episodes are dropping. I'm in the process of creating an Instagram page. So once that is created, I will let you know. And please go follow that as well. We're trying to hit 1,000 subscribers on YouTube. That is our very first goal. Also, you can go listen on Spotify. Working on getting it on Apple Podcasts as well. So please, please, please go listen to the show. Watch the show here on YouTube. For those of you that have been audio listeners, thank you. I appreciate you. And I can't stress this enough. Please come back for next week's episode. It's going to be a doozy. Thank you for tuning in. Peace.